Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So let me make sure I am up and active. I'm seeing green all around. The world is good. I'm hearing Jamal Thomas. Yes, the world is good. I'm going to try to do some of these live. I want to see how the quality is after the fact, where I look at it and be like, okay, that sounds okay. I don't sound ridiculous. If these sound okay, I think I'm going to try to do most of my videos live. I may do a series where I'm doing like kind of several in a row, but I'm trying to do it live. I actually like and prefer live. Alright, so Trump and the NFL. Trump and the NFL. Those two factions are warring. I have to be honest, I am enamored by the story. I'm reading through the story, and let me say it this way. Each person, whoever they are, wherever they are, they were created to some degree based on the environment they were raised in, the country that they were raised in, the time in history that they were raised in, the opportunities available for them, the people that they've bumped into, all those things. All of those things created an individual identity that person identifies as I. And that identity has a certain perspective of the world. It's like if you were trying to take a shot of reality, you had to talk to each and every one of those people. This particular person has a certain perspective. And in making that perspective, my perspective on this one, of course, you know, all these identifiers: African American, Native American heritage, America, male, etc., etc. I see this a very particular way. And yeah, I see this a very particular way. In a good way, actually. You have a situation where the President of the United States essentially attacked somebody protesting. And in a show of solidarity, the NFL, for the most part, told the President to go fuck himself. These are our teams. We're going to stand by our teams. Nike even got involved in this process. I find this to be amazing. And I love it. I love it. I had, yeah, I like this. I actually like this. It's slightly off script, but I had a conversation with a woman at work today. And it started in one place, but it ended up in this kind of spot of her saying, yeah, people need to change. You know, the government needs to change. We need to get somebody else in that will do X, Y, Z. And I made the point to her, yes, I'm far less hopeful than you. I don't have that hope. And I list all of the things that were going wrong in our world. You know, this idea of like 40% of all extinctions have taken place over the last 50 years. The plastic filling our oceans. This idea that food itself is losing nutritional value based upon the things we're pumping into the sky. The climate scientists. How one report after another, these guys with their hair on fires, these hurricanes are getting worse. This water level is getting higher. The world is in flames. The world is in flames. And people go about their way. They still get their oil in the way they get their oil. We still process our food the way we process our foods. You throwing something in a recycling bin, it's nice. It makes you feel better. It's like, ugh, I did something for the environment. Yes, I'm a good human being. It does nothing in the overall scheme of things. What you're talking about needs full-on world-scale interaction. And look, in our sandbox, in our 5% of the world's population, at the very least, it should be primed in that particular direction, particularly since the United States was one of the forces that contributed to the world order in this way. Nothing changes. Nothing changes. They went with this idea of a Paris Accord. It would take trillions of dollars to actually do something to stave off even the worst effects of what is already going to take place. The world moves on. The band plays on. Nothing changes. Nobody does anything. It doesn't do anything. The Paris Accords is laughable. It's laughable. Your scientists, these aren't the tinfoil hat wearers. These are the scientists. They're telling you that your world is on fire. And these people are running around trying to figure out how can we spend the least amount possible to try to do something to stave this off? Cash isn't real. So understand the perspective and the context that I'm putting this in. There is a real world reality out there. That real world reality, and man, this was far off the reservation. That real world reality, for the most part, is being set afire. And the perspective of most of these countries around the world is, well, I mean, that's expensive. That's expensive. We're going to have to spend money to do something about this? Okay, we'll spend money, but it can't be too much money. It can't be too much. I mean, we have budgets to deal with. You have budgets to deal with. That shit isn't real. It's not real. What you're talking about, the cash, is not real. Your world is being set on fire, and you're talking about something that's not real. This is the lunacy of humanity. And so when I'm having a conversation with her, and she's hopeful, and I'm like, yeah, I don't have that hope. I don't have that hope at all. I think humanity is going to hit a rock. Now, that being said, that in no way stops me from saying, hey, I think humanity is going to hit a rock. We need to pull back on the wheel. You do it because there's nothing else to do in that case. It's like you're playing chess, and yes, you play out those last moves, even though you know both people know you're made it, you're fucked. That's it. I understand that I don't know everything, so I could be completely wrong. And in knowing that I can be completely wrong, I leave that room for hope. There are times in stories like this where you say to yourself, oh, wow, that's a little hopeful spot. And I know that's a lot of wood to chop to get back to this point, but I kind of want to make this point. All of this started for the NFL because a person decided to kneel during the Pledge of Allegiance. During that national anthem. People bitched, they moan, they boo at him. Boo at you, man. Boo at you. Call him Kirkpatrick. And he complained. Oh, what is he doing? Oh, he's not doing anything. Oh, he's just wasting time. Why is he doing that? Why is he doing that? Saying how ineffectual it is, while at the same time forgetting the fact that they're actually talking about it. They're actually talking about it. And now we're at the point where, based upon one man kneeling, one man with a power throw, just going to one knee, just silent resistance. He didn't make noise. He didn't throw a fit. He didn't do anything. He just went to one knee. The strength of it had to do with the utter defiance of it. This guy is not towing the line. This guy is not following suit. Why is he reminding us of the vagaries of our society? Why is he doing this? Why is he doing this? Now, he will make the point, you're murdering us. You're killing us and allowing the justice system to let these cops off after they do that. Many of these people were unarmed. These people look like me. Yes, I am going to do something. I'm not going to pitch a fit. I'm not going to do something that's, over the top. No. Your country is not standing for me. I'm not going to stand for it. So yeah, when you play your anthem, I'm going to go to one knee and protest. I want people to be aware that when I'm doing this because you're killing people in the streets. The poverty level. It's just the disadvantages that are built into that particular society. Yes, I'm taking a knee. I'm taking a knee. I'll stand for you when you stand for me. Silent protests. Again, the strength of it, to some degree, was that it was done with a whisper. It was this idea that why is he doing that? It was enough to draw attention to the issue that he wanted to draw attention to. That knee, that just going to his knee, has spiraled into the point of having the President of the United States attacking the National Football League, and the National Football League telling the President to go fuck himself. There are times that are surprising. Sometimes the things are surprising. Don't let anybody ever tell you that small acts of resistance don't matter. Don't let him tell you that. It was quiet, but he's drawn attention. Donald Trump has lost his shit about this. And Donald Trump is completely wrong. And in no way is acting presidential. This is pretty fucking childish. And I love the NFL's response. For the most part, they've backed these guys who are protesting. This is Reuters. Dozens of NFL players, coaches, and even some owners joined in silent protest at games on Sunday against Trump's call for owners to fire players who did not stand during the Star-Spangled Banner. The issue of kneeling has nothing to do with race. It's about respect for our country flag national anthem. NFL must respect this, Trump said on Twitter. Trump kicked off battle with the largest grossing U.S. professional sports league at a rally on Friday when he said any player was a son of a bitch who should be fired. He was met with criticism for all corners of the sports world. The childishness, the gratuitous fear-mongering and race-baiting has become so consistent that we almost expect it. The bar has been lowered so far, San Antonio Spurs head coach Greg Popovich told reporters. I had no idea I lived in a country where a president would say something like that. Welcome to America. The athletes you see protesting are protesting because they love their country, Chief Executive Scott Blackman told reporters in Park City, Utah. We fully support our athletes and everybody else to express themselves. And look, the wild part about this is there have been people who were on Trump's side at one point and was like, I can't deal with the president on this. I disagree with him. Guys who gave Trump a ton of money. Let's see. Cowboys, Nike gave a comment. Nike Inc. said they support athletes who had joined the protest. Nike supports athletes and their right to freedom of expression on issues that are of great importance to our society, the athletic wear maker said. The debate attracted intense attention online with the hashtag #TakeAKnee, racking up 2.4 million mentions. Take a Knee was used 1.2 million times on Monday, while Boycott NFL only 100,000 mentions. Looks like the public is making a choice. New England Patriots quarterback Tom Brady, who has said he considers Trump a friend, on Monday said he disagreed with the Trump remarks. I thought it was just divisive, Brady told Boston WEEI radio. All Americans are granted rights to peaceful protests, Earnhardt wrote. Dale Earnhardt, by the way. He quoted that late President John F. Kennedy, those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. Dale Earnhardt is quoting John F. fucking Kennedy. Go ahead. Here's the thing. I've heard people make this argument that Trump was doing this because he was trying to rack up votes from his base. That may be true. NFL players. Have you ever seen an NFL speech, like one of these coaches in that locker room giving this like a rousing speech where you may dislike the team and everything else, but you're like, oh, I'm gonna go punch somebody in the face. I'm gonna go get him. I'm gonna go get him. Like, it gets you riled up. Same thing like a war speech. I am anti-war as anti-war gets. I can hear a war speech. My blood is pumping. I am ready to go get somebody. I'm kind of making this point that these guys are comrades to some degree. It goes beyond friendship. This guy is protecting me from getting hit. If this guy doesn't protect me from getting hit, I'd be in a hospital. I must trust this guy. I trust all of these guys. I would imagine when those guys go into the locker room, it's like, this is not a son of a bitch. This was a man that I'm standing beside when I go out on that field. They probably consider themselves warriors to some degree. You may have somebody in that team who absolutely hates somebody else in that team, but they're not going to take any shit off of anybody attacking any member of their teammates, even the ones they dislike. It doesn't matter that it's the President of the United States. What matters is, this is my teammate. I was on the field with that guy. I'm not going to fucking attack that guy. That guy is part of my team. That guy is part of my comrades. So yes, I expect the sports world to stand by their teammates. It's not even a question. Your society, who do you look to when you're looking at approval in that sense? Like, if you're a scientist, you don't really give two shits if somebody thinks you're a bad person because you don't believe in their God, and vice versa. Who you associate with, who you identify with, those are the people who are in your particular community that you yourself are going to look for approval from. I mean, let's be honest, most people as human beings look for approval. The question becomes, who is that approval base? Sometimes they get somewhat cloudy. It's not cloudy in this case. It is very clear who these guys are going to stand beside. They're going to stand beside their teammates. They're not going to have the president mouthing off at a football league. These guys out there playing football. Why is the president having this conversation? It's childish. It's immensely childish. I'm sorry, it is. It's an extraordinary breach of etiquette for the President of the United States. When Obama was in office, and look, you can say whatever you want to say about Obama, he had a manner and a class about how he went about doing his job. Problem is, he was murdering a lot of people while he was doing that job. But still, you can't take points away from him for dignity and class. He looked the road. He looked the presidential role. This guy's out there calling football players a son of a bitch. It's one embarrassing thing after the other. The reason why I'm doing this story is because I love the fact that these guys were standing by him. I love the fact that the NFL was standing by its players when they were pushed from some external source. I love, for the most part, that the country, for the most part, is in agreement. I don't like the president attacking football players, period. Particularly for having something to do with what's taking place in the country. You can pretend that if it doesn't exist. But either way, it just looks bad. But again, Trump may be doing this to kick up stuff with his base. But let's be honest, we always assume that just because somebody does something that they have reasons to do it. It's very possible Trump has just been a prick. It's very possible that this is actually what Trump believes. So I understand that everybody is looking for these, extra motives for what's taking place. There may be motives. He may be trying to kick up support from his base. Or he may just actually believe it. Or it may be some combination of both. You have to always regard these things with a certain amount of ambiguity. It made me smile that they were standing by their guy. The question becomes, does anything else come out of this? Meaning, yes, the attention has been drawn to this particular issue. Yes, the NFL and the sports world has essentially stood up for the players themselves who are protesting. Does this get more players to protest? And does this create this thing where players themselves start having a political opinion? Does this one guy taking a knee in silent protest start somewhat of a movement in regards to the way the players themselves behave? And stop pretending as if the things that take place externally from them are somehow don't matter. Like, meaning players don't really take an opinion one way or the other about what takes place outside of the game that they play. I'm saying, is this a change in that tenor? Is this a change? Did one guy kneeling put a spotlight on something literally from some of the most popular leagues in our country, or sports leagues? Stay tuned. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. It could be a passing fad. It could be a passing fad. Or it could be something more substantial. My penchant for cynicism in this would have been proved wrong. It would have been proved wrong. It's not so much that I just thought they would ignore it. I thought nobody would care. President Trump attacking these guys kind of put a spotlight on it. Putting a spotlight on it kind of showed which side Nike stood beside, even showed which side the league stood beside. I like that. Actually, I like that. So, let's see. an entire league and 5 teams have a real chance. Black people seem to be killing each other at higher rates. You give anyone that much power with little oversight and they're going to abuse it. Race has nothing to do with it. Put it this way. Police kill whites at a higher rate. I mean, they kill more whites. It's just the percentage that we're talking about. Like, we make up, what, 13% of this population. They kill us at a rate 4 times more than others. I mean, that's a hard way to go to say, well, I mean, blacks are just doing more bad shit. We're 13% of the population. Even if you want to go with this idea of drug crimes, we're locked up at 4 times the rate of whites. I mean, how are you saying race has nothing to do with it? That's an insane conversation. This is one of those things, this kind of structural thing where people call it structural, but call it what it is. It's not like there's some invisible process that's putting blacks in prison at a higher rate. These are people who are stopping them. These are people who are pulling a gun out and killing people who are unarmed. Race has nothing to do with it. That's bull. That's absolute bull. I mean, even if you want to look at the poverty figures, the numbers that came out in the census, I don't have the exact numbers on me, but they were abysmal. They were abysmal. The widening gap between whites and blacks in regards to income. Blacks had nothing almost. Like, you can't even, it's hard to put it in perspective how little one had versus the other. It's fucking amazing. Now, we can have this conversation about whether or not people who are in poverty have more aberrant behavior. I would say yes. I would say yes. When these guys are taking a knee and they're kind of making this point about unemployment, poverty, perception themselves in regards to cops and how little authority that these guys have oversight. I mean, how little these guys are punished when they actually do something that's pretty fucking heinous. There's no oversight in regard to cops. These guys go out there. There should be no person who's single with a cop. Meaning there should be no one-on-one activity with the cop without some level of oversight. They're dangerous. So that knee is making a point. And it's a little bit disingenuous to say race has nothing to do with it. Those stats wouldn't look that way if race had nothing to do with it. When they did those reports for Ohio and Baltimore, cops killing unarmed people, the Justice Department came back saying, yes, there does seem to be a propensity for people to use these kind of racial policing techniques. In both. So this idea, oh, race has nothing to do with it. It's just a few bad apples. Whatever. Absolutely whatever. Red economics. They're bullies. Bullies pick on people they think they can push around, and cops know whatever they can do whatever they want to blacks without losing their job or going to jail, including murder. That's the amazing part. That's the amazing part. That cop in Chicago saying, I'm going to fucking kill this guy. And he fucking killed that guy. And guess what? He got off. I'm going to hit his shit that has nothing to do with race. I am the last person to go with this idea of race in regards to how we interact. I usually make the point that the problem is class, not race. And that's true. But you must understand this idea of race and class are somewhat intertwined to some degree. You had a group of people to build a country, and those people got squat for it. You had all of this wealth that essentially persisted from one generation to the next, to the next, to the next. You had a group of people starting off with nothing, going all the way up into the 60s, being completely disenfranchised for certain jobs and everything else. Meaning that poverty was, for the most part, instantiated and maintained through state apparatus, including where these people could live. You get to what? The 80s, the 90s. I always am amazed at people saying, it's like, well, I mean, come on. There's no issues now. As if history is somehow untethered to itself. I find this amazing comment. If you're going to make this case, well, if I make the case that it's class, not race, that's true that it's class, not race. But when you have this group of people, for the most part, who were maintained at a certain status for almost the duration of this country's history. It's a bit disingenuous to go with this idea that class is completely devoid from race. They are intertwined to some degree. There's no way to have a conversation with one without having a conversation about the other. I mainline it, and so I don't necessarily feel the need to have this conversation continually about race. Ultimately, I do think the issue is class. But you deal with issues of race through issues of class. If I'm making that point, it's this idea of you're living in a capitalistic society. Your range of freedom is determined by the amount of capital that you have, or the access to capital that you have. The majority of this country, black and white, are in poverty. Understand what I mean? It's only 13% of the population. When I'm saying that half of the country, 66% of the country, if they got a $500 car note, couldn't afford to pay it. Meaning a bill, let's say the muffler went out or something went out. They couldn't afford to pay it. The car was sitting in the shop. So yes, I don't necessarily see the need to continually have the conversation about race, but I'm not crazy. I completely understand that those things are tethered. I just also know that there are a lot of whites in poverty. This thing is not completely isolated to blacks. So yeah, it affects both. It affects both. But let's not pretend that race has nothing to do with it as if it's some kind of irrelevant factor. It is not an irrelevant factor. The statistics wouldn't look the way they do if it was an irrelevant factor. Those reports from the Justice Department in those states would not look the way they do if race was not a factor. Let's be honest. Yeah, Tabitha Enriquez, Richard Wolff threw down some stats that floored me. Look at Democracy Now! Richard Wolff has this video where he goes through the census report. It is mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. It's hard to put in perspective the wealth measurement between blacks, Hispanics, and whites. It is amazing to see. It is an amazing thing to watch. Dax Jacob, all progress on the subject is lost due to Trump. The little Klan guy running Department of Justice made sure of it. What was the progress? Honestly, what was the progress? I am unclear on the progress that we're talking about. Eric Holder, after the black guy was shot, I think it was Michael Brown, Eric Holder went there, talked to a few people, and brought his ass back to Washington. He called for a report on the Justice Department, essentially monitoring that police department. Then he came back saying, yes, these guys were using practices that were pretty disgusting. It's not a bad apple. It is the entire batch. What happened afterwards? What took place? What substantively took place? Are the police departments still getting military equipment? When these guys put down a protest and these guys were chanting and everything else like they were part of some kind of Hawaiian Klan group, that's the perspective of the department itself. They believe that they're in enemy territory. What changed? What fundamentally changed? Are they still killing African Americans and getting away with it? Yes, it still happens. All of that still happens. There's been no fundamental changes to the police departments in the United States, even under a black president for 8 years and 2 black Department of Justice people. They brought in Jeff Sessions. Where's the progress? What progress of Jeff Sessions getting rid of? I know he's getting rid of the drug thing, where this idea of marijuana versus other drugs or something like that, coke versus crack. Yes, that's true. But I'm talking about substantive change, not this incremental stuff. Substantive change. I don't see it. I don't see it. Is it possible that Jeff Sessions is going to use the Justice Department in a way or completely ignore certain cases? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Were people being prosecuted under the Obama administration and the Department of Justice in this way? No, they weren't. Not in any substantial way, no. No. Let's stop pretending that there's some fundamental changes between these two administrations as if the Democratic administration is going to do something different or substantively different in this case. They're not. They toe the line. Whatever. This aggravates me. When Obama was in office, and they shot that guy. They killed that kid. Or I'm sorry, his friend, they arrested the cop. The cop arrested that guy at his own front door. He arrested the guy at his own front door. Obama comes out and says, these cops behave stupidly. Republican starts howling, and he comes back and has a beer summit. His beer summit. Oh, what an embarrassment. What an embarrassment. The first black president is cowed into having a beer summit with some cop that racially profiled some guy and arrested the guy at his own front door. Nothing changed. Nothing changed. He was terrified. He thought his political life was in jeopardy and he was okay to be cowed in this way. How diminishing. The President of the United States. If nothing else, Donald Trump owns it. He owns it. He may look like an asshole. He may look like a clown. Whatever, he owns it. I'm the President of the United States. I'm going to say whatever I want. Everyone else can go fuck themselves. Whether you believe it or not, that's a strength to some degree. Don't do it to the point where you're looking buffoonish. But in a situation where you're morally right, yes, you should stand by that. I'm the President of the United States. That guy behaved stupidly. You can go fuck yourself if you have comments after. There's something to be said about doing it, particularly on moral grounds. It bugs me as an African American to see the president in this way being cowed like that. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's aggravating. Dax Jacobson, killer cops don't go to jail because people, mostly whites, refuse to put cops in jail. That's true. Liberal economics. Capitalism is flawed. Crisis after crisis. First overcome through government intervention in the 70s. Kneecapped is a strong labor class by shipping jobs out of the insuring. Yes. Consumerism through credit card and debt. Yes. Now what? Economists have no idea. They have no idea because capitalism is a Ponzi scheme. It's a Ponzi scheme. You have a situation where the country itself, we've gotten to the point where we're post-scarcity. There's not a situation where people need things in this way. You have people who need things, but those people don't have cash. It's not that we don't have the technical know-how to get them those things. We do. We have the technical know-how. We can do it. They don't have cash. They don't have this imaginary thing, this access point, this access card. They don't have it, so they don't get. In our country, the way we deal with this, since people have the things that they need in our country, is through marketing. It's through marketing. Hey, I know you already have 3 pairs of shoes, but look, don't you want this extra pair of shoes? Hey, I know you have the other iPod, but look at this one. It has a different knob on it. It does one thing different. Don't you want to buy this additional iPod? If people made things to a degree that were sturdy and that lasted, our economy would come to a halt. You'll have a bunch of people being laid off. It's a Ponzi scheme, even from the standpoint of labor. It behooves the company to maximize their profits. That's what they want to do. That's the whole point. Whatever a company does ultimately doesn't matter. That's the stupid human trick that they use to make profit. The point is profit. What they're doing doesn't matter. So understand what I'm saying. What they're doing is secondary to the process. The first point, the main point, is to make profit. McDonald's doesn't make hamburgers because he loves hamburgers. He makes hamburgers because he wants you to buy them. It's nothing to do with the hamburger. He doesn't give a shit about the quality of the hamburger. Yeah, he's going to put pink slime into 30-40% of the hamburger because it's cheaper. Maximize his profit. I need to lower my production costs. I don't give a shit if the people eating them gets cancer in 30-40 years. It can't be attributed to me. So yes, I'm going to make this hamburger, but ultimately I just want the profit. That's in any industry. That's in all industries. The industry itself is secondary to the point of making profit. There are 2 things. You want to lower your labor costs, and you want to lower the cost of items that you buy. The problem with that is the lowering of the labor costs. So you do that by firing workers. If I have the capacity to ship a job overseas and I can pay them $3, whereas I was paying these guys here $18, that's what I'm shipping that job overseas. has nothing to do with the social impact. It has everything to do with how can I maximize my profits. That's what people fundamentally miss when they're talking about companies and everything else. They see like McDonald's clown is, oh, he's such a nice clown. It's not anything. It's a machine that's built just purely for the sake of profit. It doesn't care about social outcomes. You have an oil company. It wants to make as much profit as it possibly can get. So yeah, it's going to bribe the government officials to keep giving them billions of dollars in subsidy. And yes, they're not going to care about climate change. The goal is to make profit. They don't care about the social impact. It's what, 1% of the population? They can export the cost to everybody else? Yes, they're going to do it. The game space itself, even though the game space itself is not real, it doesn't matter. The people are so locked into it that they don't care about the social impact of the things that they do. So the company that fired all those workers and shipped that job overseas, that company now, the people who he fired, can't buy that company's products. Can't buy it. The system itself eats itself. At some point, they're going to put in a robot. Can't ship the job overseas, but I can put in a robot. I can fire this worker, put in a robot. I can fire that worker, put in a robot. I can have a host of robots. I don't need people. Those robots, they don't buy stuff. The people that you fired did buy stuff. And those people that you fired can no longer buy your product. Capitalism eats itself. It continuously eats itself just in its basic form of operation. It's going to create poverty. It's going to ship profits to the top. Yeah, it's going to eat itself. The wild part about this is that as it's eating itself, the government itself is supposed to be the regulating body on this. Meaning it's supposed to be the thing that tries to keep these guys at play. But as it's eating itself, it's going to do a few things. It's going to accrue massive amounts of profit. Massive amounts. It's going to use that profit to buy essentially what they do now. We're going to put those money into the politicians. Those politicians are going to essentially lean our way. Meaning we're going to attack labor relentlessly. We're going to attack it. Keep in mind, again, the goal is to minimize labor. It wants to lower the cost of labor. Your salaries. The reason your salaries haven't gone up. Of course they weren't going to go up. They've expanded the pool of workers at this point, meaning they could have jobs anywhere. And they've increased the use of machines. If labor wants to have a strike, fine, we'll ship our job overseas. The politicians themselves, labor has no inroads with government. The Democratic Party told them to F themselves during the Clinton terms. Labor in this country is immensely weak. The system is eating itself. You're going to see more and more poverty. You're going to see more and more people out of work. The people are going to be out of work because there are just not enough jobs, and there would never be enough jobs to accommodate the number of people you have in your society. The reason why they're having this conversation about universal basic income is because people on some degree understand it. Oh, they're not going to be able to buy our products. They're not going to have money to buy our products. What are we going to do? Let's give them scraps. Let's give them scraps. If we give them enough scraps, they'll be able to buy our products, and we can stay rich, filthy, filthy rich. Yeah, let's see. My volume's low. My volume shouldn't be low. Let's see though. My volume's at 100, dude. I think you're yeah, my volume's at 100. Smith's theories were deeply flawed. You know, it's funny. Everyone likes to talk about Adam Smith's first line, the capitalism line, but if you dig into it, Noam Chomsky talks about this. Even Adam Smith kind of made the point that it depends on businesses having this kind of ethical center. That's laughable. That's laughable. This imaginary hand is going to hold all of the stuff, and they loved it. Oh, I love this man. I love Adam Smith. Adam Smith is a god. It's a Ponzi scheme. These guys are just finding ways to justify their wealth. How can we justify having this much cash with everybody else having so little? That's all it is. That's all it is. Here's these complex formulas to show why we have all this and you guys have squat. Marvel at our Garden was trolling. Build cheaper products. Here's the thing. And I joke the soft left one is when I say the soft left doesn't necessarily mention this, and I ask, what is the soft left solution? If we're having this conversation, and man, we've gone a long way from football. We've gone a very long way from football. Technology is a good thing. If you can automate a process and take a human being from that process, that is a good thing. As a society, we should applaud processes that can be automated that take away human labor. If they can make a machine to flip hamburgers, God bless them, make a machine that can flip hamburgers. If they can get a car that doesn't necessarily require a person, you should do that. You should do that. The problem isn't the technology. The problem is the way we've organized our society. The technology, in that sense, should free human beings from labor. That's our problem. That's not like a, automation is not a bad thing. Automation is a freedom. It's freedom. It's our way out. We don't look at it that way. We've organized ourselves in ways where this top 1% owns all of the means of production in this case. So if they automate a process, they're firing workers. Our system requires people to work, even when it's unnecessary for those people to work. You can understand an issue would happen, or coming across an issue if you have less and less need for human labor because you've automated one process after the next. A rational civilization will say, hey, we can stop working in these cases. We can go fishing. We can work less. What does it mean to be a human being? What does it mean to be a human being? I would argue that it has nothing to do with the job that you do. People have become so infatuated with this kind of plantation mentality that they identify themselves with the job that they do. I'm a software engineer. I'm an accountant. I'm a something or another. Who you are is far more valuable than some tool or being a cog in a wheel. You have immense potential for all sorts of things. You've contorted your way into the society to be some kind of, object for somebody else's profit. I'm saying you're more than that. I'm saying the society that you're in gives you this impression that this is all you are. I'm saying you are more than that. Understand it. Know it. Not a cog in a goddamn wheel. Yes, right. The rational, educated capitalist will act in the interests of others. That is insane. That is immensely insane. That goes against this kind of, in this societal space, in this game space. You have this idea of maximizing your profit. It doesn't matter what you do as a human being. You're in this game space that says, I need to maximize my profit. Now, that's status and wealth. Both of those things go in tandem in our society. People look at the billionaires being somehow, hey, if he got that much money, he was murderous. He did something to deserve that much cash. Yes, that guy did something to deserve $42 billion. He did something to deserve as much wealth as half of the world's population. Yes, he was murderous. That's laughable. That is a laughable position. And yet, that's the position that we're taking in our society by default. By default. We understand in our world that we have this idea of scarcity, meaning you can go without. You cannot have your needs met. Not because we don't have the needs to make sure that everyone has their needs met. No, that's not it at all. You just can't afford it. So people do what they need to do to scrape by. They create some kind of stupid human trick. They contort themselves into somebody else's tool where they can make bucks and dollars to, run around on the hamster wheel. We understand this idea of scarcity. We're close to it. Most people are a few paychecks away from poverty. So it's not this hypothetical thing. That's the point I'm trying to make. You have some people who have massive amounts of wealth. But because most people understand this idea of scarcity, cash, the amount of money that you had, became this kind of status symbol. So if you don't have, oh, poor bastard, boo on you, man, you weren't meritorious enough. If you do have it, you're immensely meritorious and you've deserved it and you're a fucking awesome human being. None of those things are necessarily true. That guy could be a horrible fucking human being. The guy that has nothing could be an awesome fucking human being. And often that is the case. Now, we associate wealth, or it's like this weird interspersion between wealth and quality of person. It's immensely insane, but it's there nonetheless. Yeah, it's kind of bizarre. I don't understand. I guess I can understand why. Your decision space is determined by how much cash you have. If you're working and making barely enough, let's say 40, 50 hours a week, and you're barely making ends meet, what is your decision space? What are you eating? What are you feeding your kids? Where are you living? Your decision space is determined by the amount of money that you have. It's the way the society is arranged. At some point, when people no longer made the cash that they needed, they started borrowing money. So now you have massive amounts of debt. And people that are, again, still barely making their ends meet. Yeah, man, this system is a Ponzi scheme. Deserving, yeah. You know, I would argue that the society should be in the opposite way, in the opposite tenor. Like, if you're looking for this idea of having some kind of social cohesion, having people in that society with massive amounts of wealth is not the thing to do it. It's not the thing to do it. Your legislative apparatus is going to be influenced by the people with that massive amounts of wealth, because they're going to do something and try to advantage themselves in regards to politics. You can't have this kind of democracy in a capitalistic system. The more that people accrue huge amounts of wealth, they're going to start attacking that political apparatus in order to control that political apparatus. That is the America that we have today. That's our country. That is literally our country. There's a reason why laws don't necessarily follow what the public wants. It follows what somebody wants. It's not the public. At least not the majority of the public. Yeah, man. Thing is, it doesn't have to be that way, though. Like, it's hard to get across to people. This is a game space that compels that behavior. Like, you as a person understand this idea of scarcity. You know, it's like, at the very least, you may not necessarily understand it on a gut-to-bone level if you had a decent upbringing. But you're aware that it exists. You do what you need to do to make sure you don't have scarcity. You try to save enough acorns. And I'm saying acorns for cash, but you try to save enough. Even in situations, you're stuck in this perpetual situation of, how can I advantage myself? How can I maximize my cash? Or how can I maximize my life? It doesn't matter. Field or economics, you're still in this game space. How can I maximize my cash? It compels the behavior. That's what I'm saying. It's not, in a different society, in a different game space, you may act in a different way. That's the only point I'm making. This game space is contrived. It doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. People like to say human nature. Human nature is malleable. Your human nature is the way it is because you're ensconced in a particular game space. If you were ensconced in a different game space, you will behave in a different way. You would have a different value system, a different cultural outlook. All those things would be different. How you are today, how the world is arranged, is a basis of how we've arranged ourselves. That is the system itself. That is not something that's purely indicative of human behavior. Now, you can say, this is human behavior in this system. Okay, fair enough. But then I get to say, this is human behavior in another system. The conversation that I think people should be having is, human nature is malleable. If human nature is malleable, then you have to compare human nature in particular systems. What does human nature look like in the capitalistic system? Here's your presentation. What does it look like in a different system? In a more technologically oriented society where you work towards making sure everyone has the things that they need, what does human nature look like? That is still a society with issues. That is still a society where people work. But what does that society look like? That's the only fair comparison you can give. Not talking about capitalism, not talking about socialism, not talking about any kind of ism. A different society where people work towards making sure they get things that they need. What does life in that society look like? And make a comparison. That's the way I evaluate that stuff. But I acknowledge that I am in a different context. Like, I am so ensconced in this context That me thinking about things in that other society, there's certain things I'm like, ugh, I'll get over it. Because I have to compare everything. How much crime is that particular society going to have? How much poverty is that society going to have? How much brain degradation from that poverty is that society going to have when people have their needs? How much crime? How much racism? How much? Go down the list. What I would guarantee you is in that society, war is probably a thing of the past because war is no longer a profitable industry. This idea of crime goes away. This idea of corruption, for the most part, goes away. If there's no cash, there's no corruption. That being said, there are problems. Like, problems is the wrong word for it. There are certain things that changes. Like, so there are no fry cooks in a society, this kind of cashless society. Nobody's going to subject themselves to that. You're either going to have the process automated or the process doesn't exist. There are differences. There are things that will have to either be overcome or things that people would not necessarily like. You're all going to have problems in that society. But look, you have problems in any society. In any society that you create, you will have certain problems that you need to deal with. The question becomes, what are the problems you're willing to accept versus the problems that you have? So I can say, this is the list of problems I have in this particular society. What are the ones I have in any other society? We live in a vulgar world. We live in a terrifying world. You're used to living in this particular world, so you think this is okay. It is not. It is not. There's too much crime. There's too much poverty. We are at war all of the time. Literally, there's a war going on at some point around the globe at all times. We are destroying our environment. We're destroying the place that we ourselves need to exist. Destroying it. Our own habitable zone. We're not doing okay. This is the epitome of the capitalist model. So any model that I come up with is being compared to this. If you could eliminate poverty, just poverty by itself, imagine the health that you would have around the world. If you could create a society where people have the capacity to go to school anytime they wanted to go to school. Imagine the potential you're releasing in regards to the human potential that you're releasing. How many Einsteins are living in Pakistan? You know what I mean? How many Stephen Hawkings or Neil deGrasse Tysons are living in those countries that we're bombing? If those people had the potential to be who they are, the resources met, education needs met, if they had the potential to be who they are, meaning if it was released, what does the world look like when you have scientists all over the world working in tandem and cooperation with one another? That's a fundamentally different world. That's all I'm saying. That's a world where potential is completely released. Our potential is always held back by cash. I'm saying there's a fundamental difference in those worlds. You can point to certain things that may be a problem in this idea of a resource-based economy. That's fair. That's totally fair. There are issues that I was like, I don't know how that would work. But again, I'm not wed to any particular thing in that sense. It's more so, what are certain core ideas that you need to make in regards to creating a society? That's all. It's just this kind of comparison that you have, this conceptual comparison. Super chat. Let's see. They also restrict by what your genes tell you to survive and reproduce. Yeah. You're limited by your genes. Yeah. We're still hardwired for cave scavenger living. We still behave as if we're in that environment for the most part. Yes, but yeah, but that's not fully fair. So I know what you're saying, Gardner. This thing of we're kind of hardwired for certain things. I agree with you that we're hardwired for certain things. I would agree with you that certain behaviors that will make that hardwiring worse. Like If you lived in a different system, you would behave in a different way. If you had different cultural pressures, you would behave in a different way. If you had a society that was much more less batshit crazy, you would behave in a different way. You live in a society that's for the most part completely adversarial. You have politics that are completely adversarial. You have your interactions with people in general is adversarial. When you're trying to get a job, you're competing with somebody else. When you're in a job space, you're competing with the people around you. You're always in this position of competition. If you lived in a society where your entire life was based on competition, yeah, you may act that way too. I'm saying it's not as simple as your genes are saying X. I'm saying your society is playing a fundamental role in how you yourself emerge and how the rest of the people in our society emerge. There's an aspect of you that's you, fair enough. But each and everything that you bump into, your society particularly, this kind of soft pressure that takes on, it changes who you are. It makes who you are. If you were dropped in during the time of, say you were dropped in Japan during the World War II, you would act a particular way. You'd probably be saluting the emperor. If you were dropped in some kind of Muslim country, you would probably be praying every five times a day. Your society, in a large way, dictates your behavior. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Oh, wow. Jay Scott, hard work pays off, Jamal. People will come. Wow. I appreciate that, Jay. That's a lot. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Look, I'm always slightly freaked out by the money part of this. I am, man. It's one of those things where I'm aware of. I know that ultimately, all things being equal, I would love to just do this full time. Like either do this channel or expand it. Oh, dude. Jay Scott from Redneck's Garden and the rest of Ebon's crew after dark. Thanks, dude. Thank you. Oh man, like I said, the money part weirds me out, but thank you. I appreciate it. I do appreciate it. My wife usually is like, just say thank you and keep it moving. Just say thank you and keep it moving. Yeah, man. All things being equal, I would love to expand this channel, but. And look, like she would say, well, the money part comes along with that. Yes, I guess it does. It still weirds me out, but I appreciate it. Chad Wilson, we just have to name the absolutes. They're going to be different identities based on religions, race, sex, sexual preference. Each culture has defined the neutral space in which they can allow. Yeah. Yeah. So in my head, when I think of a society that's somewhat free and open, to me it's people have the space to be who they are. Period. Now, yeah, offensive behavior is going to be a problem because I'm just saying it's ideally your society has grown a certain amount rational based upon the way the society is arranged. And so yeah, giving people space to be who they are doesn't necessarily conflict with other people having the space to be who they are. When I hear somebody say something, I tend to be a little bit more empathetic because I try to think from the perspective of, if they're in a society that's free, should they have the opportunity to be that way, even if I don't particularly like the way they're being? Yeah, the answer is yes. The answer is yes. Will that sometimes conflict with other people in that society? The answer is also yes. Yeah, the answer is yes. Alright, it's an hour. I came on here to be like 10 minutes. It just kind of rolled. Just started off on football and Trump. And I gotta be honest, I need to listen to this again, but I actually thought I liked my I thought I liked that part. And then we've spiraled into just insaneness. Look guys, I appreciate you guys showing up. Like I said, I started this I think just for the day, or just for like 15 minutes, and we just kind of gotten from one topic to the next. I may break this up just yeah, I may break this up. We'll see. But thank you everyone for showing up. You missed the first half about Trump. The first half was good. The first half was good. I think the first half was good. Sometimes I don't know. I look back at it and I'm like, ugh, I want to get rid of that. And there's sometimes where I think I did miserable, and I look back at it, I was like, holy shit, I love the way that sounded. It's hard to tell. Now, Jay, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it, dude. I really do. Alright, guys. I may have one more after this. We'll see. There's something that I read during the day that I thought was interesting. So, I may have another one after this. Alright. Have a good one.